Good morning, everyone. I hope your day is starting off as fantastic as it can. Are you ready for some interesting strategy discussions? Strategy that may play out in the next couple of weeks or a month. Now, remember, I've done some videos predicting the correct strategies and the optimal strategies for the different political parties to use in the Canadian election. And the Liberals followed my strategy pretty much bang on. The NDP did not, and the Conservatives did not, and the Bloc did not. Everything I predicted or suggested was correct. In fact, I should be selling a hat that says Klaus Kellerman was right about everything. But going forward, I have some strategy proposals that may shock you. But let me explain where we are right now politically in Canada. In the picture behind me is the winner of the election, Mark Carney, our new Prime Minister, and his Liberal Party has 169 seats in the House of Commons right now. The loser in this election is Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, that now has 144 seats in the House of Commons. And I say loser, that will upset some Conservatives because they will counter by saying that the Conservatives up their seat total by 20 and they up their percentage points of popular vote by about 10 points. And those are both true. But it is also true that the Liberals increased their seat totals by about 12 seats. And the Liberals also increased their popular vote by a wider margin, a larger margin than the Conservatives. So Canada has become more of a dynamic rather than a trinamic or a quadnamic. I don't know if that's a word. But there's really two key parties in Canada. And Mr. Poilievre leads the party that lost. And also, he did not win his seat, which is a huge factor going forward. Now, pictured behind me here is the leader of the NDP party, which finished this election with 7 seats. This is a picture of him in Burnaby mowing the grass at the park. Where's the grass, you say? I guess he mowed it all. Where's he? Well, after he mowed all the grass, he went home. Why should he hang around? That's a good one, isn't it? That was a good one. But now let's get into the serious strategy discussion here. Enough of the entertaining comedy, okay? And this is a strategy that is being discussed right now and probably has 30, 35, 40% chance of actually happening. And it will be disclosed on this channel only. No BS discussion. The Liberals have 169 seats secured, which is 3 seats shy of a majority government. What does that mean? That means that when Parliament is recalled and they start to govern, everything they do will be difficult because they cannot simply propose something and bring it to a vote and win. They need one of the other parties to vote with them. And if Parliament is voting on any type of monetary bill or anything that involves a budget or the spending of money, if they do not win that vote, it automatically triggers an election. So they have to be very careful in how they proceed. Now, there are some Conservatives that believe the best strategy for the Conservatives would be to try and continue to vote against the government and try and bring the government down quickly and have another election. That may not be the best strategy because I think Canadians would be quite upset about that, having to go to the polls and go through all of this again. It probably would not be a very good idea to do that. The other important thing is money. And when you look at the parties, the amount of money they have. The NDP has been crushed to 7 seats and they have no money. They cannot afford to have another election now and risk being wiped out if there is one. So you could probably count on the NDP voting with the Liberals on everything, at least for the next medium to long term. The same with the Bloc. They kind of emerged from this election still kicking. Their leader survived. They have 22 seats. They're not interested in having another election now, and their finances are terrible. They don't have the money to go into another election. The only 2 parties that could afford to launch another election quickly are the Liberals and the Conservatives because they can raise money quickly. Now, the Conservatives in the short to medium term are going to be in disarray because Pierre Poilievre does not have a seat in Parliament. And let me explain how this works now. Poilievre does not have a seat in the House of Commons, so when the House of Commons is recalled, he's not allowed in. And that is a huge factor because the Conservatives are the official opposition, and the official opposition has the privilege of asking all the questions, the first and most questions in question period in the House of Commons. And that's where a leader of the opposition gets all his advertising. He stands up every day in question period and grinds the government and asks questions and shouts slogans and clips them and puts them on social media and hopes that all the networks show his 15 or 20 second or 5-second clip. And that's how they get their message out. Pierre Poilievre is not allowed in the House of Commons. He didn't win a seat. And so what he must do now is find another Conservative MP who won legitimately in the election, and he has to convince that person to resign their seat, which would leave the seat empty. Now, that doesn't mean that he gets to run in a by-election immediately, because the timing for by-elections is controlled by the Prime Minister. So the only thing Pierre Poilievre can do now is convince one of his members to resign, thus making the seat vacant. And then it will be up to Mark Carney to decide when a by-election should happen. And the Prime Minister can delay that decision by up to 6 months. So Pierre Poilievre could be sitting in the penalty box for up to 6 months before he even has a chance of running in a by-election. Okay? That's where we are right now. That's the dynamic, and a lot can happen in the House of Commons. A lot of decisions and a lot of bills can be passed in those 6 months if during this time of turmoil, the parties work together and support the Liberals and come up with common things that they want to do. But here's the strategy that may play out 35% chance of happening. The NDP now does not have official party status. They have no power. None of their members can sit on committees. They get no budget. They're basically on their own. They're pretty much independents. They operate as independents now because they got less than 12 seats. Their leader is gone. So this is the ruthless Liberal strategy that might play out in the next couple of weeks here, guys. And this is politics and strategy, Game of Thrones type stuff. Like, listen to this. Mark Carney should, and the correct strategy is for him to approach these 7 New Democrats, to have a meeting with them and ask them to cross the floor and join the Liberal Party. Oh, shock of all shocks. How can he do that? That's plain dirty. Yes, of course it's plain dirty, but hear me out. This is what he does. You get these 7 NDP members of parliament, you have a meeting with them, you tell them, look, you guys have no official party status, you have no budget, you have no voice. You're simply backbenchers in the House of Commons with nothing to do. And chances are, in a minority government, there's going to be another election within a year and a half, 2 years, potentially. And in that election, the Canadian public could say, okay, we're tired of this, and they could wipe you off the face of the map. Your party has no money. You don't have a leader. Your leader that you choose will have no name recognition. You are in really bad shape. But we Liberals, we share some of your values. We agree with your nationwide dental program. We agree with your nationwide universal pharmacare ideas. We agree with lots of the ideas of the NDP. So here's what we're going to do. You guys cross the floor and join us as Liberals. And in return, I will make 1 or 2 of you cabinet ministers in charge of some of the things that you guys are most passionate about. The NDP sees itself as the voice and the real fighter for the working person and the unionized employee. Well, why not offer one of these NDP members a post as Minister of Labour? Why not offer 1 or 2 of these NDP members a portfolio or a responsibility or the file of pursuing the universal dental care for Canada, the universal pharmacare for Canada? Why not put 1 or 2 of those guys in charge of that? That's what the Liberals could offer these NDP members and try and entice them to cross the floor. That would convert Canada into basically a 2-party system. And that would consolidate the left of center vote in Canada and make it so difficult in the future for the Conservatives to ever win. Because the political dynamic in Canada has always been, this is how it always works in Canada. The Conservatives only win nationally in Canada when the Liberals and the NDP split their vote. The Liberals and the NDP split their vote, and the Conservatives come up the middle. That's the only way the Conservatives ever win. And you can look at results from all the past elections, and every time the Conservatives win, a majority, it's because the Liberals and the NDP have split their vote. In fact, the majority that Stephen Harper won in his first term, the Conservatives had less of the nation's popular vote than they got in this recent election. In this recent election, they're at 41.3%. Stephen Harper got less than that in the popular vote when he won a majority. Let's actually look at the numbers. In 2015, when the Conservatives won a majority with Stephen Harper as their leader, they had 39.62% of the popular vote. The Liberals and the NDP split their vote. Jack Layton, leader of the NDP, managed to get 30.63% of the popular vote, and the Liberals, led by Michael Ignatieff, got 18.91% of the popular vote. If you add these two together, it's close to 50%. The Liberals and the NDP together in that election that the Conservatives won received almost 50% of the popular vote. That's how elections go in Canada. So you could see what would happen if those 7 NDP members crossed the floor and became Liberals. The Liberals immediately would have a majority with 176 seats. They would have almost 50% of the popular vote in the country, and they would have a clear majority mandate to govern without any worry for 4 to 5 years. It would be a political stunt that would go down in the history books. And guys, it has a 30 to 40% chance of happening. And for those of you who perhaps are conservatives that are thinking, oh, that would be crazy, that could never happen, a conservative would never do that. Well, there is one very prominent conservative who is in power right now in Canada that did this exact thing. There she is right there, Danielle Smith, now Premier of the province of Alberta. She used to be the leader of the Wild Rose Party in Alberta, the far-right party, the party that had aspirations of redefining conservatism in Alberta, the party that toyed with the idea of separation in Alberta. Back in 2014, she realized that the Wild Rose Party really didn't have a chance of winning an upcoming election. So what did she do? She and some of her MPs crossed the floor to join the Conservative Party led by Jim Prentice. And the news back in 2014 when this article was released is the headline here: Alberta Premier Jim Prentice and former Wild Rose leader Danielle Smith speak to the media after a caucus meeting in Edmonton on Wednesday. Prentice's caucus met to discuss a bid by at least half of the official opposition to cross the floor. And she did cross the floor, and she joined the Conservatives. It ended up being a very bad decision for her because the Conservative Party turned on her and did not even give her the nomination to run in the next election. And she was wiped out from politics in Alberta, and she became a radio personality. And she was a media personality for some time until a recent Premier of Alberta resigned. His name was Jason Kenney, and he resigned in the years after the COVID crisis. He resigned, and then the Conservative Party had to choose another leader, and they chose Danielle Smith. And she became the Premier of Alberta without ever winning an election or ever receiving any votes from any Albertan, only by being chosen as the leader of her party by her own party. Exactly in the same way as Mark Carney became the leader and ipso facto the Prime Minister of Canada because he was chosen by his party to be the leader of the Liberals. Danielle, you have a lot in common with Mark Carney, I guess. So what I'm saying is this kind of stuff happens, and the most sensational example of it was from Danielle Smith herself. But of course, if these 7 NDP members cross the floor and join the Liberals, the Conservatives will be furious. And the one that will be furious more than everyone will probably be Danielle Smith. Irony and hypocrisy are pillars. Remember, this is politics. It's cutthroat and it's sleazy, but it's cutthroat and sleazy across the board. This is a legitimate strategy that's being discussed by the Liberals and the NDP. And the only way it will not happen is if those 7 NDP members have so much pride in their party and wish to rebuild and wish to keep the NDP party going. But it will be up to those 7 individuals. They can simply cross the floor and become Liberals. Think how that will affect their careers. Right now, they are a group of 7 in a parliament with no power, with the potential of, in the next election that could happen in a year and a half, 2 years, losing their seats and just losing their jobs. That's probably their upside. Okay. The upside of crossing the floor and becoming liberals is they may become cabinet ministers. They may get official jobs in government. They will act like being an opposition or a backbencher in opposition is completely different than having the power and being in the government where you can actually make the decisions. Like night and day, these guys could just step into power, step into government, and potentially, if they do a good job and become liberals, they may go on to have long careers governing in our country. It's crazy, so crazy, but it just might happen. So I'm interested in knowing what you guys think. And remember, you heard it on this channel first, okay? This is happening behind the scenes. No one's going to talk about this stuff. If it does happen, it will be a complete surprise, just like it was when Danielle Smith crossed the floor and basically turned her back on the Wild Rose Party. Oh, there were so many members of the Wild Rose Party that were furious at her, that hated her. And it took years and years and years for her to regain some of that support. And now she's the premier of Alberta and pretends that she's a conservative. But her path to becoming the premier was dirty and sleazy because she's a politician. And it's possible, like I say, I give it 30, 35, 40% chance that this could happen. And the Liberals only need 3 or 4 of they don't need all 7. 5 would be good. If they cross the floor, if 5 of them cross the floor and the other 2 say, no, we're going to stick with the NDP and try and rebuild, the Liberals have a majority. So the correct strategy for the Liberals is try to court these NDP members to cross the floor. The correct strategy for the NDP, and I'm talking directly to the NDP now, is cross the floor. Okay? Cross the floor because you have been wiped out and eliminated from the political structure in Canada. Your party is finished. This is Klaus Kellerman giving free advice and strategy to the political parties. If you're an NDP supporter or if you're one of those 7 members, the only way to save yourself and your party values is to cross the floor and insist on promoting your values from within government. You will be orders of magnitude more successful in promoting those values if you're in a position of power than being 7 guys sitting in the back of the House of Commons. And the correct strategy for the Conservatives is to do nothing. You lost. Your leader doesn't have a seat. Don't do anything rash or quick. Don't expect to turn this around in 4 months or 3 months by calling another election. If the Conservatives force another election, if they have the opportunity in 3 or 4 months, and they put Canada through another election, I think it's possible that people just turn on them and say, okay, we've had enough. We need stability now. And I'm not talking about the Conservatives losing seats because people don't understand strategy, right? I'm not saying that the Conservatives will turn their backs and join the Liberals. The Liberals don't need that, okay? What will happen if the Conservatives force another election? It may be the NDP, these 7 that turn their backs, and those seats flip to Liberal. And it might be that another 10, 15 seats in Quebec flip to Liberal. The Liberals will just take support from the Bloc, from the NDP, from about 4 or 5 ridings in British Columbia that split the vote between the Liberals and the NDP, allowing Conservatives to win. The people in British Columbia may wake up and say, whoa, our province never mattered. The result was always a fait accompli before we even finished counting the votes in BC, but it matters now, and they may start to vote strategically. I think if the Conservatives try and do anything quickly, they could end up helping the Liberals form a majority. So the Conservatives just have to, you're playing the long game now in the Conservatives, and you have time to try and figure out whether you want to keep Pierre or you want to axe Pierre and get someone else. You have a lot of time to figure that out. You can't rush anything. So I'm interested in knowing what you guys think. Leave your comments in the comment section. And remember, when it comes to political strategy and analyzing this stuff and coming up with kind of the best plans of action, a la Game of Thrones, Klaus Kellerman was right about everything, guys. So leave your comments, and I will catch you guys on the next one.